Welcome to On the Entrepreneur's Journey, the show where we explore how founders and operators build companies that scale, evolve, and ultimately run without depending on any single person. Today's guest is Gianluca Sardo, president of the Glass House in New York City. Most businesses grow over time. This one was built almost overnight. The Glass House went from a concept to a $40 million event business with 200 employees in just a few years, hosting major corporate events and luxury celebrations for Fortune 500 companies in one of the most competitive hospitality markets in the world. What makes the story even more interesting is that the company was built from scratch with backing from private equity firm Carlyle, and Gianluca joined when the venue was still under construction, before there was a team, a track record, or even an operating playbook. So today we'll talk about what it takes to build a premium service brand, how you scale a team in a high-stakes experience business, and what it's like running a company inside a private equity investment that will eventually look for an exit. So Gianluca, welcome to the show.
Hi, Peter. Thank you very much. A great introduction, and thank you for inviting me here.
Yeah, great. So I'm really curious. There's so many aspects to this that are sort of non-conventional. So how did the Glass House concept come together? And of course, it was starting before COVID, but really you launched in COVID.
Yeah.
And so you had to have a pretty good conviction to get the money and launch, in 2021 when you did. But how did it come together? I'm curious.
Yeah, great question. So the Glass House basically came from a vision from the founder of the Glass House, Mr. Gutman. He has another small event space in Chelsea for 15 years. And he decided it was the moment just before the pandemic, so it was 2018, 2017, to think about a bigger event space, because beside Javits Center in New York, there was no private event space that can hold up to 2,000 people in one room with technology, with amazing view. So basically, it was just starting with a vision, and that was backed up, like you said, with some equity investment. And everything was on paper, basically was realized and built. I joined the Glass House just before it had an operating history, right? And basically what I did, I just helped turn the founder vision into reality. During one of the hardest moments, right, in the event industry, but in general, and our focus, was to become this premium building event space and premium experience and premium brand from the ground up.
Right. So I'm just thinking, obviously this was years in the making. The pandemic hits. I'm wondering how much navel gazing and how much, we said, do we go ahead with this? And where was the decision that, Carlisle said, yes, my money's coming in, and Mr. Gottlieb said, okay, let's go for it. Did you wait a period of time, or was there back and forth?
I think it was
yeah.
a combination because the project was started already. The construction started before the pandemic. The opening, I think, it was supposed to be in 2019 officially. And New York construction sometimes take longer than what they promise you. And is what the founder told me several times at the very beginning of my experience here. And after that, a little delay here and there. And a lot of attention from clients because when there is the new toy in town, everyone won't try, right? So there was a lot of demand, but and COVID hit, so that was an extension, let's say in this way. And, when you are in the middle of the construction and the project, you need to keep doing, right? So COVID gave the opportunity to finalize all the permit, all this construction, create a team. And you never know when it was the green light to open, right? So at the end, I joined the company in August 2021, and it was just a month before the first event was booked. And, it was a very interesting situation and challenging situation because you need to grow from a small team to a much larger organization. And this only work if if hiring standard, accountability, and values stay high, So That was the challenging at the beginning because it was, if you remember, there was a lot of restrictions. There was a lot of you cannot stay together. There was distance. There was number of guests. There was test. I remember that the first 10, 15 events, everyone need to show a rapid test before entering to the building.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And
So
the Carlyle decided, to continue to invest in this very different business that they usually are, for
yeah,
what I know. And I think, the combo between the idea and the money, I think gave a good result so far.
yeah, no. And you took a lot of personal risk. I mean, the venue was not open when you joined. You had carved out a career as being a good, restaurant manager, general manager, managing people, managing teams in the space. And yet you decided to jump on something new. What was it that you saw? Because you took personal risk,
Yeah,
if it didn't fit.
sure. I think the founder was very convincing. So I
Yeah,
think in the same way he convinced Carlyle to invest, he was very convincing to join this project with a long-term vision. And it was, I can tell you, the main reason why I decided to accept the offer. And honestly, my hiring process was almost over the weekend. I remember that. But again, I was still believing in this project and in this big project. And I take, all my experience, like you say, in hospitality and try to apply to event.
right. So let's roll it back. You're in sort of mid to late 2021. The market's starting to open up, but people have to show their vaccine cards and all the things. How were you able to convince those sort of first clients to come in and test the space? And was it hard, or were people just chomping at the bit saying, I really
No,
want to
no,
come into this space?
was hard. It was hard.
Yeah.
And I think the opening team, I call it that way, there was the people that were hired a little bit earlier than me, did a great job, to networking with people, gain their trust. But I remember very well that one of my first day at work, I need to convince the planner for the first events that I was capable. And she asked me for reference, and she called in front of me my former employer, the CEO of the company, used to work before because she was friend of him. And on speaker, I said, "Do you know Gianluca?" And he said, "Yes, of course. He's a good guy, whatever." So at the beginning, you need to gain trust, and also because it was a new brand. Who knows the glass house in the event industry? No one was it was an little event space, very nice on Chelsea, opened 15 years ago, but was just a penthouse. It was a massive space with a massive operation. And I remember the first few events, first few weeks, the entire team almost live here in the building just to make sure if the power goes off, where are we going to go? And if the water shut, where is the shut valve? So it was a lot of learning session. And we in the front end to the clients, we need to showcase to them that we're confident on what we're doing. Even if behind the scene, it was still figure out certain things. But at the end of the day, it was a great journey and a great experience, and also in some way fun. But was it worth?
Yeah. Well, obviously you were able to build trust because you got these customers and you must have delivered very well, and the activity has picked up. And kudos to you for doing that. But there's another side to this, which is you start with 15 people when you show up. You're starting to put on events for 2,000 people. You're growing it. So how did you grow the team, from 15 to what is it, 200 now? And what was it, because you're the requirements of what you do. I mean, these are special events. These are large amounts of money invested in events, and you're talking about A-list clientele, Fortune
Yes.
500 companies. So there's not a lot of room for error. So tell me about the hiring process and what you look for in those people to join your team.
It's a very good question because everyone think about when you run a business, it's just about processes, it's about rules, it's about no, it's about people, it's about team, it's about team building, it's about how you inspire them and how they inspire you. because it's not just a Gianluca, it's not a one-man show. It's a
Right.
team. It's a team that show up. So basically, it was not easy. You make some mistake at the beginning when you talk about recruiting because you also need to understand what's the company value. I think is there where you need to start to work on it, on the company value, on the company culture. You need to find the people there, even if they don't have the big experience, but they have the passion and they have they're willing to learn the job. And in particular, they need to want to work in the service business, right? In hospitality business, where you work for the clients, when you build trust. And at this point, you need to scale also your company and your team. And the only way to do that is to be proactive, to be a leader that lead by example. But also, you need to help them to grow in their position. I'm very too happy to say that 80% of the people that start with me back in time when I was just director operation, when I joined the company, they're still here in a higher position or with more responsibility. This means that all together we create the culture and we're able to, pass maybe some obstacle that we have as a startup. And because we call it startup, very honestly, when we started. Of course, now we're not anymore a startup. And but this is working together and help to each other with the same goal and be proactive.
Yeah. Yeah, so I like that, and I'm a firm believer that you hire on culture, and you sort of touched on your core values that you used, and I'm curious as was this a deliberate decision where you said, okay, we can teach some of the things we need for delivery, but I really want the right culture in
Yeah.
terms of, and what were those core values? You touched on a few, but can you spell them out for me a little bit more,
Yes.
what you were really looking for, Gianluca?
I pay a lot of attention on attitude, ownership, hospitality instinct, and whatever someone elevate the room, because skill, like you said, can be developed. You can teach, you can tell people and help them to grow, but mindset is much harder to teach, no? So
Yeah,
I want people who understand that luxury, because we call ourselves an event space, luxury event space. It's not only about aesthetic, but it's about consistency, attention to details, very important, and make people feeling taken care of. These are the most important things. The clients needs to understand you care of them and you gonna be there for them to help to execute the best day of their life or best day of their company or their product launch. So this is the what I pay a lot of attention on it.
okay. So, and the website, it has this all over it. You're selling an experience, and you've got the glass, you've got the view of the Hudson River. You're right on 12th, and beautiful views, probably great sunsets, and all that. So it's great. So what does selling an experience, or what's that philosophy? What does that mean operationally for
Yeah.
the team?
Saying we sell an experience means that we think beyond the physical space, right? The event space, because the venue to me is just the stage, but the real product is how the clients and their guests feel from begin to end. So from the first time they come to the venue until they're leaving at the end of the event. So operationally means that every department has to be aligned around the same standard: sales, production, operation, guest arrival, timing, also post-event follow-up are all shape of the same experience. So basically, a premium event is not defined by one big moment. It's defined by 100 of small events that need to be executed well.
Right, right. And so and that falls back on your culture of having those people who want to provide
Yes.
that feeling for everybody.
Yeah, I always say to my team, we don't sell just an event space or beverage package. We sell an experience. So
Yeah,
from when you arrive with your car or with Uber until you're leaving and you get your coat from the coat check, every single step needs to be unforgettable or taken care of very well.
yeah, yeah. So I'm kind of fascinated, and I would have loved to have been there at the beginning. I mean, to get a big, gigantic private equity firm like Carlyle to invest in a startup in the midst of COVID seems very, I would bet against it that would happen. I mean, it's just not a usual business model. So, but I'm wondering how it's been working under the ownership of a private equity group in a startup environment. It seems I'm interested to see how they managed it.
I can tell by fact that, my personal experience here, private equity bring discipline, accountability, and strong focus on the value that we create at the glass house. No? Also, it push leadership and me personally to think more strategically, measure performance carefully, and build a business that is scalable and durable. This is something that having a private equity behind you that give you an extra step and an extra tools that you need to take in consideration. Usually when you work for a private owner or when you work for a big corporation, you don't have this direct feeling, with the investments company or with a private firm, a private equity firm. But in this case, they bring you and you start to look the business with different eyes than maybe prior that experience because they give you analyze data more deep and trends, something that sometimes you just use your experience and you think that your experience is enough to make the right decisions. But having this opportunity to work with those private equity firm give you also some tools and some knowledge that could be very helpful in your career.
Yeah, and there's mixed experiences with private equity. I mean, they're really good ones that are creative and they add ton of value to the process, which it sounds like was the case
Yes.
here. And then there's some that don't have the staff or the knowledge or the know-how or the underlying systems to really be able to provide a lot of help. It seems like you had the former experience.
Yeah, I think it was a good experience so far.
Yeah. So as in any private equity, they have a time horizon on their investments, and the business has matured. You told me you were doing like 200 days a year. Was that the
Yeah,
correct
a
number?
little bit more.
A little bit more.
212. Want to be very precise. Yeah,
212. I mean, we all know that that's a lot of days
it
that
is.
you're going after it. So what is the future of where do you see it going from here? You're kind of at capacity. What are the next steps? If you were talking to your customers, you're talking to your employees, where does this company go from here or the event
Yeah.
space?
For me, the next phase is about continue to strengthen the brand, deepen operation excellence, and looks how we can expand our impact without compromise our standards, because this is very important. Because the goal is not just grow for growth's sake, right? The goal is to sustain growth, that protect what made the company successful in the first place. So we need to continue to be, a good executor, continue to grow the business, continue to grow the brand, because also, as a new brand, you need to continue to generate brand awareness, not just generate revenue but also generate that. And I think we need to be just much stronger and just continue to show that was not a momentum, but it's the company that's mature and he become an adult right now, and
Yeah.
he can walk on his own and he can become strong and very, very successful as well.
So, and I'm curious about the model. Is this something where your customers, do you have to find new customers every year, or do you have a core of repeat business, or is this a constant marketing effort to get new entities to fill the glass house?
I
Or
think it's a both. It's
yeah,
a combination of both. But I think in the last few years, we were very good to create a core. I think we have 55% of repeat clients
oh
that
great,
continue to do their annual events over and over. I think some of them this year will be the fifth year in a row. And this is amazing. But, there is competition out there, right? So you need to continue to work in the market and with the marketing to find the new repeat clients. So the new
right.
events for this year, the next year is going to become your new repeat clients because it's a cycle, right? It's a cycle, so you need to be ahead of the cycle, and you need to just to start. We start already to book 2027 at this moment
Yeah,
because we want to continue to improve. And again, it's a combination. We want to have a core business, like we want to have a core team in our team, right?
yeah,
Same capacity, but you need to work also on the new business, on the new type of events, on the new market, on the new trend, because trend change, right? So you need to make sure that you are also on trend and not just to repeat as a robot
yeah,
every year the
yeah.
same things.
Well, you have to create something new to keep the people coming back because you don't want the
100%.
event to be seen as the same as the last one, and then that's not a prescription for perpetuating your client base.
Right.
So is there a concept to say, okay, I can now I have enough experience with this space. Do you say I want to open in new cities or new locations within New York City? Is there a movement to try to replicate this model someplace else, or is it
I
just
think I think so. I think so. Of course, there is needs to be several factor, and the location, the
right?
view, the size, and other little factor. But I think it's a model that after 5 years, I think we confirm that we can replicate it, and because we have the core team that can help, to duplicate and can expand the business. But of course it's better to make sure you mark all the steps and before you jump to the next project. And I think after you stabilize this business, maybe you can after that move the focus to future project. I think at the moment we are at 90% on stabilization. I think we still have a little margin. You always have a margin, but you still have a
Right.
margin of increase in the next year or so. So as soon you reach that, I think you just like in the games, right? That you move to the next level, so you can try to go to the next opportunity.
Yeah. And I just want to get into a little bit into the profitability aspects of it because it is such a service business. People are paying a good amount of money that you want to create the experience. Do you ever find a situation where um, the the demands of the client are such that it's just eat, and there are multiple things. There's food, there's service, everything else. Do you ever run into a situation where your projects are under a lot of margin pressure, or is it something where you've got a repeatable process and you can crank out some pretty good profits?
I think you can crack out some good profit, but of course, to reach 212 days, you need to be very creative.
Yeah.
And when you need to book weekends or holidays or dates around holidays, of course, you need to be creative, maybe find a good partnership and find good ideas. But majority of our business, it's very profitable.
Yeah.
And because now we create a system, right? So we know exactly and what that cost, what the expectation. Also, just every year we invest $1 million in improvement in technology, in new things, because you don't want to look old or look the same as last year. So we
Right. Right.
invest a lot. It's true that we are inexpensive and event space, but we always came with something new or with something that client gonna find interesting and on top. And but continue to invest in a company, an organization, even invest in people, in their trainings, in their knowledge, skill set, team building. And we try to invest money internally also to try to raise new leaders and new people to help to continue to push the brand up.
Yeah, yeah. It's. I mean, you have to reinvent yourself every year when you think about
Oh,
it,
yeah.
and that requires capital and training for the people to move with the trends. It's so I can see that there's a big reinvestment of that profitability
It
back into
is
the business to stay that fresh and to get that attract those repeat customers. And profit, you have to have the profits to do it. So it's great you've been able to
100%.
do that.
Yes.
Well, I'm very curious to see where this goes next because you're in private equity hands, and where that goes, and what they decide to do, and whether that leads to new ownership, expansion into new locations, replicating the model. I think it's going to be very interesting to watch as you mature this, and it sounds like you're on the precipice of doing just that. And I would guess the next 2 years is going to is we're going to see what direction that you go in.
Yeah, I mean, the beauty of this type of business, to your point, every year is different, right? So 2025 was our best year ever.
Mhm.
2026 look like the best one.
Right.
And but again, it's you can take a different avenue. People can continue to invest more in the glass house. People can be part of the glass house project. There is a million opportunities here because now you have a stable business. You have the opportunity to showcase that this model works, and you can replicate everywhere. So if you have a vision, if you have ideas, and if you have a strategy, I think this have no ceiling. It can keep growing in other city, in New York, even Europe. So it can go anywhere, and could be with a equity firm, could be with a future maybe other ownership. Who knows?
Yeah, yeah.
But it's a very interesting project that I think people are willing to jump in case there is any opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, I think there will be people will want to do it. I would think Miami or something like that would be a great location, and you know, with the money that's gone down there and the businesses that have gone down there, I could see that as being not that I'm an advisor, but excellent. Well,
Thank you.
Gianluca, thank you for your time today. I really want to. I'm very curious, and I want to watch, and I'm going to be monitoring to see where this goes. But I think you've done a fantastic job in a very competitive business and creating such a great product and succeeding in such a competitive market. It's a really kudos to you.
No,
And
thank you, Peter. And I want to thank my team, first of all, because
yeah,
without them, we're not going to be in this position now.
yeah,
So in general, so work as a team leader, it inspired me, and I'm very proud of my team. And I keep you posted about the
yeah,
future.
yeah.
And then thank you very much for having me today, and it was a pleasure.
Okay. And for all those in the audience who are watching, we will see you next time on the Entrepreneur's Journey. So thank you, Gianluca.
Thank you, Peter.